not only is there over-parenting, I think sometimes parents go overboard. I'm talking even at preschool, right? They intervene too early. The poor teacher, who is a professional trying to do, they all qualify. In Singapore, they all qualify. Parents think that they know better. But they forget that at home, the home environment is very different from the school environment.
Welcome back to We Are Dads 2 podcast. Today we have a guest who is very well known in Singapore. Let me read to you his credentials.
Oh no.
How long will it take? Good question. I think it could take the whole episode,
Okay, let's summarize.
And then let's play What's My Line, identify this person. If you still remember it. I think a lot of our listeners probably have not heard of this program. Because you are young, but if you're our age, you would know what we're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What's My Line anyway, right?
Yeah, it's a game show that is, long time ago. Okay, so our guest is a professor of education, pediatric exercise science. That's the first time I heard of it. And his professional credentials include certifications by the British Association of Sports and Exercise Science as a sports scientist, the American College of Sport Medicine as a health and fitness director, and the Outward Bound School, Hong Kong. You're supposed to say, wow.
I'm lost for words.
That was a very long time ago.
Oh, that was very long. But, yep, it's still recorded, on the website. He received several awards for his teaching, research, and leadership roles. And he leads international research on screen media use, physical activity, and sleep and eyesight among preschool in 20 countries. So, can you guess who our guest is?
Must be a person that has written so many books and probably can share with us some of his findings, very research-based findings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And of course, he is Professor
Michael Chia.
Welcome
Prof.
Yeah, that's two.
Thank you for having me here. Reading out my bio makes me think that I'm schizophrenic. Sounds like several personalities all rolled into one.
Hey, I've not finished. There's one more thing, which I find very interesting. It says he enjoys his work and his play tremendously and oftentimes confusing work and play as the same. Can you explain that a little?
That's really an occupational hazard because I'm by nature a teacher educator. And, when people ask me to recollect my childhood, I remember 4-letter words like play, P-L-A-Y.
Okay.
And homework was when you were at home. So I was most of the time not at home and playing outdoors.
I see.
So I had a really adventurous childhood, and I think I miss those days. But obviously, society has changed and the environment has changed. So people grow up in a very different environment today. And,
That's
right. If you talk to people around our age growing up at that time, so, they remember all those days. So question is like, how can we bring back some of those elements and rediscover this attraction of play?
I totally agree that play is something that we are really missing out on. And, I hate to use the word, but to some extent, I think deprived. I was telling you that I have 3 kids, and the youngest one, was my kind of a second chance at fathering. And I really mean it because for a change, instead of just bringing my kid down when she was very young, 3, 4, 5 years old, to the playground, and instead of doing what most parents do, which is to watch their kid play, I played with her. And that was therapeutic for me. That was therapy. I really regained my childhood by just playing with her. So yes, this is a very important topic and something that is quite close to my heart. And I don't know if you heard about this in America. There's something happening and a trend that's picking up called adult recess.
I haven't really heard about it, but I can guess what that might entail. because as you remember, recess time, right, for us. So actually, it's a mad scramble. We're always thinking, do I eat? Do I play? Do I eat? Do I play? And most of the time, we play.
We play, yes.
But if you pose the question today, if you have to eat or play, it might be quite different. And also, if you think in terms of recess time, you look at how our schools are restructured. Actually, the the tuck shop or the canteen is usually the center of the school where there's a hive of activity and so on. If we flip it round, can we have the playground as the center of the school, where all sorts of meaningful things happen, right? Kids play, it's noisy, they're teasing each other, they're running around, they're socializing.
Yeah.
And I think in Singapore's context, that's very important because I think people are just too sedentary. I'd like to go back to what you mentioned about playing. Even I think it's very right that adults must also continue to play. I mean, play is not just for kids. We have different forms of play, of course. And then if you have children, young children particularly, I think child and adult play very, very important. And there's lots that we can do. We can do activities together. So it's not just like the adults trying to, be with a child on kids' terms. And if the adult is playing, the child has to adapt. I think, there's a hybrid that we can think about. And, these days, even with media, the media could be a form of play.
Yeah, that is our topic for today, right? Talking about digital media habits early childhood. You were describing how we played last time, during our good old days. And now our children are playing very differently. Most of the time with a gadget in front of them. Most of the time probably social media. That means they don't really physically see their friends, but they have hundreds of friends. Even people that they do not know, strangers. And there are a lot of issues that come with this new media. Maybe we can ask some pertinent questions. We have a very short time. I thought we really squeeze our professor for this next minutes or so.
Yes, Prof, we are ready to take notes. I want to ask you about the research that you are doing on screen media use by early childhood kids in Singapore. Although this research covers many, many countries. Why did you decide to do this particular study, and why early childhood?
Right. Early childhood, as you know, it's, I would say in the last 10 years, there's an increased awareness, particularly emanating from neuroscience. So it's another discipline to say that, the first 1,000 days of, that's 1 to 3. Some might say even 1 to 8 years old. I would say the most important facet of your life. In fact, a Nobel Prize winner in economics was saying, if you had to invest in, put money in people, it is not in the university, it's not in the high school, but it is in the early childhood years. And he's a professor of economics. What that means to say is that in terms of the return on investment, so if you are investing in early childhood education and care, that includes parent education as well, you're going to get a lot more back in terms of value, in terms of return. For example, if children were neglected, when I say neglected, that means not paid attention to, left very much on their devices, no cuddles and hugs from significant others. Studies have shown that actually this neglect you pay in negativity later on in life. Not only are they less healthy physically, they're also less healthy socially. And, they tend to get into all sorts of trouble, maybe later on in life, incarceration, get in, wrong company and crimes and all of that. The reverse is true. If you want to have a if you're talking about having an equal start, we know that society is not equal. Not all households are equal, but children should be equal. They should get access to opportunities. So therefore, possibility of down the road opportunities for outcomes, equality of outcomes. But we can't guarantee that. But we can certainly do a lot in terms of providing equality to opportunities. What that means is that every child deserves love. Every child, they did not ask to be born. Every child deserves, access to proper care and learning and warmth and so on. And that includes physical activity. What motivated me also is, the movement, not just in Singapore, but worldwide also. Last year, the World Health Organization came out. Of course, they've done many different studies from across the world. They came out with what we call 24 hours integrated guidelines for physical activity. So that means play, preferably outdoor play. They are recommending for children 0 to 5 years old, 3 hours of play daily over a 24-hour period. So when I first raised and shared some of these things to people who are advocates of preschool education as well, they almost fell off their seat.
So this is for preschool, right?
Yes, 0 to 5. 0 to 5. 3 hours, of which 1 hour. So it's not at one stretch, of course. It's accumulated. So it can be from home, it can be at school, it can be after school as well. So cumulatively 3 hours as a minimum. And that portion, 1 hour of which must what they call energetic play. And the Canadians call it risky play. So climbing trees, taking risks and all that within boundaries, of course. So that's 3 hours of daily play. And then 10 to 13 hours of good quality sleep. So good quality sleep means regular sleep time. So, and falling asleep, not getting up too often. So regular sleep hours are important. And no more than 1 hour of exposure to screen time or near work. So that World Health Organization came out with the guidelines because they are advocating for optimal development that is child-specific during that period. So I felt compelled that we need to share this message far and wide. Of course, how you enact some of these guidelines is open to interpretation, and we certainly can have very rich discussions about that as well.
Yeah. I think the 3 hours of play was more a reality in the past where kids, would go out and play, and only when the sun is setting, they will come home. Or when their stomachs are growling, I'm hungry, it's dinner time.
When the mommy starts shouting, come home.
Oh, they might be too far away.
Too far.
Start chasing and looking for us.
No, parents probably didn't do that,
Yeah,
they just expect their child to, like homing pigeons, they'll just come home when the time is right.
When they're hungry, especially.
Yeah, when they're hungry. Yeah, so 3 hours, wow, and 1 hour of risky. I was thinking
energetic
of the word,
play.
Energetic, and you used the word risky. I remember reading an article 1 or 2 years back where in England, one part of England, kindergartens were switching their playgrounds because they felt that their playgrounds were a bit too safe. And so they removed it all and just put wooden crates and planks and let the kindergarten kids walk up the planks, jump from one crate to another. I think parents must be screaming at the top of their lungs.
Interesting you say that, because we're thinking that today is very safe, and yet they still get injured anyway. I mean, I just heard from my cousin when I went to his house. He was describing how all of his children has not only knocks and bumps, have cuts and stitches at home. All right? So it's natural of children, right?
That's right.
And for you to allow them to play, But today, as you say, we create too safe environment for fear of injury, and all those are good considerations. But it becomes very constricted and restricted, such as you say, that energetic play does not happen, or the risky play doesn't happen. So again, why that risky play? What does it do in terms of in terms of the brain development and physical development?
Sure. Yeah. Excellent question, Hafiz. It's not an all or nothing, so it's a very gradual one. So even in the 3 hours of play, some of it can be accompanied. So what we're talking about is either a parent or a significant other adult accompanies the child. So as you remember, as a toddler learns how to walk, all right, the person needs to actually lose the balance and fall to learn kinesthetically. It's not something that you can program. So in terms of energetic play meaning, if you are just walking slowly, all right, you can control, and that's the progression. And once you can do that, once you can start to walk, in fact, even before 2 years old, we're talking, you don't start from zero play to going out. We call it tummy play. So, you lie the baby down on the tummy, and that's, the avocation is for about half an hour every day. So they reach out and all that. So they must be aware. They can kinesthetically be aware of their movements and so on. And as they grow, their limbs balance changes, right? So some of it can be accompanied play, and then you have play on their own terms. And once they can do that, they get confident. So they start to be aware. Most of the time they bump into things indoors. Indoors is even worse because it's very limited space, right?
Yes.
So if you go out, you got a little bit more space.
Yeah.
And they start to negotiate, different textures. So again, the idea about time for play. So what is our tolerance for dirt? I remember the days when it rains, the minute it stops, we say, hey, in the playing fields, that's good for sliding.
Yeah. When it rain also, we are there.
Yes, of course. and you get the cut grass and all that. And, I remember going home and the neighbors used to shake and said, no, don't, telling their children, don't mix around with these rascals. But
So
you
later become a
negotiate.
professor.
No.
Well, it explains.
I
You want your children to become professor, or at least at that level, let them play a lot.
Yeah, you must have played a lot. That's why you're now a doctor.
I wish I had.
Chia.
No, I wish I had played more.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Even more.
Then you would be a double doctor.
When you describe baby tummy play, right?
Yes.
It reminds you of what about being in a non-comfort zone.
Yes.
When even if you're adult, we will only learn something and build a faculty to achieve something greater if we are in an uncomfortable zone.
Exactly.
When we are in a comfort zone, we don't grow.
That's right.
There's some level of struggle, wrestling,
Yes.
And pushing, and trying things that you probably have not done. And correct.
In physiology, they call it the principle of overload. So if you just use overload as in stimulus in terms of physical touch, stretching, even cognition, different types of friends. So you're exactly right, being out of your comfort zone. So you get stimulation.
Yeah.
So play actually, both accompanied and unaccompanied. When it's accompanied, there's that relationship between other people around,
Social.
adults, social
aspect.
and what kind of behavior that entails. So sometimes that's why kids always test the boundary, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
When you walk, you say stop, then they'll look at you and then they try again.
Yeah.
So actually they are learning, negotiate. And then when you have, they're a bit older, when they play with other people, there are different kinds of stages of play. The early childhood educator will tell you. Sometimes they just stand next to each other, but they are not interacting. But they know they are there. They are playing on their own and all that. And then then they start to interact. And when they start to interact, of course, there are tensions, right? Some of them will take the toys and, the other one, so they start to learn to negotiate. And they might even get into conflicts. So one of the things as adults we want to try to do is to not to intervene too early. Yeah. So it's that whole process of continuum, from early childhood and then when they go into teenage years as well. So the concept in Singapore, we have the view that not only is there over parenting, I think sometimes parents go overboard. I'm talking even at preschool, right? They intervene too early. The poor teacher, who is a professional trying to do, they all qualify. In Singapore, they all qualify.
Yep.
Parents think that they know better. But they forget that at home, the home environment is very different from the school environment. And what we're advocating, including EDDA and MCCY, the government running these centers, are saying we should work in partnership. So there are many good things in school that they learn that can carry over into the home environment as well. So children feels conflicted when you have different sets of values at home and then in school.
Before we pick up on the different values, I want to pick up something that you said earlier. It's about when, it's a bit ironic, Here, we are telling fathers to get involved more because that's why we have this podcast. We believe fathers have the potential to be involved more in their child development, child education, and everything else. And yet you're saying now, we are over-parenting. So where are we missing here?
Okay. Sometimes they are a bit too selective, you see. It's sometimes, it's pervasive all over. It's the me culture. Sometimes we're guilty of that. Me, myself and I and my family. but we forget that we live within an ecosystem. What's your child, your family depends on the people around you in terms of stimulation, in terms of learning as well. So you want to expose them gradually to different situations that you say familiar, unfamiliar. Of course, everything starts from the home and the school, and then it gets expanded. Sometimes you have groups outside of the school, things like dads for life, moms for life, church groups, other social groups, and so on. So it's good to expose them very early. And the child is a human being from day one. So sometimes when you see parents, not consciously talking about their children in their presence as if they are not there.
Mm.
Sometimes we ask, when was the last time you talked to a child directly with eye contact and so on? So the child picks up some of these things. I'd like to come back a little bit about digital media as well, and have a shout out for parents as well, because we grow up in this environment. Singapore is one of the most, I would say, the smartest nation in terms of connection and all that. And I think it's not going to go away. The future would be intact. A lot of the thing is going to be intact. So a lot of young parents are actually in this area, and they feel that, wow, and it, even at home, they are, always with the screens, even if they don't hand it over to the child, but the child recognizes and sees all of these things. So we need to do something to say that there should be a refractory period, both for the parent as well as for the child. So, for example, if you were going out for a walk, all of us bring our phones along, right? I mean, then we're contactable, but we are always so guilty that even though when we are out at play, somehow our glance goes back into the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't have that, or have it somewhere tucked away that is not so accessible, and then have that quality time. Yeah. So it's about managing the time. It's about really prioritizing.
Yeah. I think that affects quality time. I've read, they call it a brain drain or cognitive drain, where just having your phone near you, even though it might be flipped upside down or put on silent mode, the fact that it's near you, it drains your cognitive capacity, because you will find yourself constantly asking yourself, is there a message for me? Maybe there's an urgent email. Maybe someone is trying to contact me.
Yes.
And those kind of thoughts distracts you from the person that's right in front of you. It could be your spouse or could be your child, and you are trying to have quality time. So you are no longer totally there for your child, and you are kind of having a divided attention. So it's no longer quality time when that happens. So the advice is to put your phone somewhere that you can't see, or in a different part of your house maybe, or even in your bag, something like that.
Really agree and resonates with that. In fact, there was a study, it was quite an interesting study, I think can easily replicate here. So you think in terms of the Art Science Museum, or somewhere you will bring, a young child, say 0 to 5, out, or even to the playground. So they did this experiment with this group just for 2 hours. So they had a group of parents that surrendered all their gadgets, and then what they did was that they had recording devices, very small recording devices on the parent and the child. So it's audio only. After that 2 hours going through that museum, right? So the Art Science Museum, they actually analyzed the quality of the dialogue between the child and the parent. So this is the one without any gadgets, right? Versus another control group, the one with gadgets. And, the contrast is so stark. Those with gadgets, obviously, the quality of the interaction pales by comparison. They are no longer enamored by the things around. They at most just gave instructions, follow me and all that, but nothing about the surrounding, nothing about the wonder that is in front of them. So you imagine, how much is lost out there. And then the reverse is true. You're saying that if we live in a free world, unrestrained daily life like this, right? So how often you find that when you're around, surrounded by young ones, they are very curious, and because they will exclaim out of excitement, "Daddy, Mommy, what's that?" And imagine if he caught you at the wrong time, say, wait, let me send this email. Wait, let me
lost
look.
forever.
It's lost forever.
Correct.
And then after he said, what's that? The child may not remember, but, the message, I think, is very stuck. Unintended, of course. What you're telling the child is that whatever you are excited about, not important enough for me. And it's a shame and a pity. Often when we share this, and it's a reminder for myself as well, we always say, if you have children, what sort of memory do you want to create for them? So interestingly, some of us have grown-up children, right? And it's very telling if you ask them, what do you remember of your childhood in relation to your family members?
It's those times we were together.
Exactly.
Play together, we go holidays together.
It should be.
It should be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not that I had unlimited access to screen time.
Correct.
Playing all the games that I wanted to play.
Yeah. I read a quote somewhere on Facebook recently, and it says, which really hit me, it really resonated with me. It says, why are you bothered, so caught up with, catching up with what's happening in everybody's lives by scrolling Facebook? And you should actually be making memories with your kid. So I thought, yeah, that's really true, We are so engrossed with finding out and, getting caught up with what's happening with everyone. I mean, we have hundreds of friends on Facebook. I do not really know where to put them, actually. We used to have best friends, close friends, friends, and acquaintance, right?
Yes.
These categories of friends. Today, I'm quite confused. Where do I place Facebook friends? Which category, And there are some Facebook friends I have. I don't really know them at all.
I see.
Yeah. So that's true. I think that is a word to fathers and parents that, Facebook can wait. When your child is asleep and you are, you have some spare time, then maybe that's the time you can catch up with what's happening around you and things like that. But while your child is with you, I think the best thing to do is to pay attention to the child.
Yeah.
So how can parents navigate this new world? And many parents are not digital natives, if you know what it means, right? That
Yes.
when they were born, digital devices did not exist. So they in a sense had to migrate into this new world, brave new world, and learn. And most of us enter it with fear and trepidation. And therefore, we have this posture of, hey, it's dangerous, video games, they're addictive, and things like that. What is the right posture and attitude that parents should have in order to help their children navigate this digital world?
I would say because parents and children, they are all so diverse. There's no one size fits all. So it's about knowing self-awareness, very important. So we're talking about whether you're a digital native or a digital native, a young parent. So a digital, non-digital native is likely to be much older generation, like grandparents. But I think a lot of young parents are digital natives. So for them, they actually have to restrain themselves a little bit. But there are merits in screen time as well. But you must remember that the screen time should be your tool, and not, you don't become a slave to it. What I mean by that, for example, is that it's easy access to information. So some parents will say that whatever time that the child and I spend on screen time, that's the other thing. There are very few apps that are curated for both child and parent at the same time. It's either for the adult or for the child. So the poor parent, one of the recommendations actually is to co-view content with your child. But parents being so busy, right? Okay, you can do some of that, but you also get bored. Sesame Street, how many Sesame Streets can you be watching and talking about those things?
When they see the parents on Facebook, they straight away leave Facebook and go to Instagram. And when we go to Instagram, you start going to TikTok. And what's next, man?
Yes, yeah. So it's either on the parent's term or on the child's term, right? So one good way is to say you get ideas. So, okay, let's talk about indoor activity. Let's say, in the COVID period, I think a lot of this was enacted out. Say, let's make cookies together. So, of course, don't know how to make cookie, right? Mm-hmm. So go to TikTok, look at the instructions together with the child, and then put that away. So, just get the information, and then you do the hands-on activity. Actually, that's what happens in school. The screen is never exclusive. It is also shared. So you view something, and then there is an activity related to it, and then you might use the device to film and then to play it back. So it becomes a little bit more enriching, and it's not demonized as well. So it's seen as a tool. But of course, we also say a time and place for different things. So early childhood is for all the learning, and a lot of that real learning comes best with real person interaction. We're talking about indoors and preferably outdoors, because when, I was interested in this also, that because Singapore has one of the highest rates of myopia. Interesting, by the time they reach primary school, it's like something like 28%. By the time they reach P6, it's 65%. By the time the guys go to NS, imagine 80%. So we're all not sharpshooters.
I lived overseas many years before, and because I wore glasses, all right, I was immediately, people knew I was a foreigner, because in that land, people were not well off and they could not afford to make a pair of glasses. So it stood out. And then we had visiting teams from Singapore, and everyone who walked into the room, the locals were seeing glasses.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's like for us it's normal, right? But we go out of our so-called comfort zone, or even a different environment, we still stuck contrast. And I think it's a good point that we should not demonize. As parents, although we are not digital native, we should not see it as zero-sum game, and always say that gaming is addictive, even without backups or even evidence. So how do we navigate that really? For your own experience as a parent, and you have quite an, after maybe it's quite an old kid now, right? But how you would advise parents with in the stage of early childhood, right? How to start right? How to start right, such that what are the habits that they can have, daily habits, certain rules, certain culture that they should have. Like during meals, you think that's how when you go for a walk, put your phone at home. So what advice or tips do you have?
In those days, actually, I wasn't even researching. This was, I only got very interested in this in the last 10 years or so. But being a physical educator, movement came very natural to me, and I think I was very fortunate. My daughter loves to dance from a young age. She just picked it up from I think I said the genes came from my wife rather than myself, because I got 2 left feet. So she really loved to dance, and we encouraged that, and she spent a lot of time. So I think about balance. So knowing about your child. And, it was good that I wasn't so obsessed with, I did a lot of near work in terms of writing and all that, and computer screens, but not so much on the phones in those days. And I, when I'm home or away from work, I take a break, because, your eyes are just tired, do something be physically active. So like most of the things, right, you say like, okay, we have 3 meals a day. I always say that, okay, if you're talking about, people are concerned about obesity and all that, and, intake of food is 3 times a day. The only output would be, would be activity and, different forms of activity, whether it is sport, exercise, or daily commute, just physical activity. But lo and behold, not only do we have screen time, and the rest of the time, unfortunately, is also very sedentary. So it's about balance, and we're trying to say, try to squeeze in, if you have 3 meals a day, can you have 3 injections of, just as people have fast food and fast delivery, right? Can we have fast exercise or fast activity that doesn't take up too much time? Just getting into the habit of moving, because not only is just for obesity, it helps with learning as well. Not everybody, we're all socialized to be sedentary. You said, okay, the sitting posture is not the best posture for learning. You can learn outdoors, you can learn through movement and so on and so forth. So we're slowly introducing some of these things. So coming back to your question about how do you balance this? So knowing your child, and I would say try, instead of, a lot of parents find it very natural to say, try some of these enrichment classes. I mean, we're talking about those that are actually quite privileged because they can afford enrichment classes, which takes them away from the screen time. Try to choose enrichment classes that are, physically active. Do something out, or better still, don't farm out your parenting. Be with your child, because actually you're killing two birds with one stone.
Yes.
You are interacting with the child, and maybe that helps with a respite for the adult as well, not screen time. You are actually investing in the memory of your child. So if parents frame it in that manner, they won't see it that, I'm babysitting or I'm doing this. I'm building my relationship. Because a lot of parents complain that when the children reach the teenage years, the gap widens. But if you were never there in the first place, so you have to invest in this. Although, child personalities are very different. So in my case, my wife and I were very fortunate that we're very close to our daughter, still remain to be so, simply because, it just went that way. And we never felt the need that we have to impose. In fact, now that she's close to an adult, we have to remind ourselves. Because you could have quality time for the first 15 minutes, and then after that, you want your stuff. It becomes very habitual. So we have to guard against that, that we have, equal amounts of time, if not more.
I think it takes some discipline. I think we can build some routines into our day where there are what people call device-free times, like meals especially. Family meal time should be device-free, and some other times also. Maybe when the kids are older in school, when they're doing homework at home, it should preferably be device-free. But of course, children will say, I need to communicate with my friends, find out, ask questions and things like that. But okay, we're talking about early childhood. So these are maybe habits where, there are allocated times blocked off and kind of guarded very sacredly and religiously that, there's no screen time here. But it starts with the parents, I guess. And I think the parents are the ones that struggle to just put away their phones.
I have a question actually. This is one thing that I struggle when I had growing up children. When do you first give them their first handphone? I'm sure for different parents, different children, different family will be different. But what would your be general advice? I mean, of course, not every parent is the same, every child is the same.
Yes.
What would it be? Based on your research.
Sure.
And,
Sure. We're actually fighting against the grain, Our research is showing also in this particular research that you talked about, that they are getting screens way, way too early. Screens, I mean, in this case, television, your tablets, as well as your mobile phone. You know why in our nature you said that, if we ask the average Singaporean adult, how often do you change your phone, right? Or change your screen? And then what happens? It's like a hand-me-down. We don't. So given, learning from some other parents as well, some of them were saying that only when necessary. So you delay the screen time for as long as possible, actually. So some advice was saying that some households, they always have the television on. The radio on is fine. The television is on because they can't, they are not comfortable with the quietness of the home, right? But if you have a young child at home, the child picks this up also, the ambient back that there's a screen time and all of that. So within the household, parents who, these days are a rarity. I have colleagues who say they don't have televisions at home. My goodness. And I'm thinking...
Yeah, my daughter is an example.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew didn't have a television at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if they did, they only allow them to watch the news
very
or
limited,
something
yeah.
very, very limited to get the knowledge. So that's one side of the story, but that almost is like a bubble, because if they went to school, you can imagine that straight away they will notice, children compare. Yeah. My classmate has a handphone, why can't I have one? This, that, and the other. So the flip side is you have, this sense of children compare, and at that age you can't help it, especially primary school. So how do you go about that? So it takes a very I would say a firm foundation of growing up, very conscious effort. Parenting is a choice, actually. So it's important, actually, from the point that from conception and, discussion. So parent preparation, very important. Couples talk about it. They can discuss some of these issues. I think it's good for the relationship. It's not like an accidental parent that you just stumble upon that. I mean, some people, especially the earliest, they stumble upon it. Everything seemed to be fine, but that is a different time and space altogether because everything is so highly scheduled. There are fewer and fewer routines that are very different because we live in urban society, office jobs, limited, the routines are quite identical. So that means that your choices are limited. So you have to ask, what sort of parent do you want to be? And screen time can be delayed for as long as possible without any, harm actually. Because what is the screen time for? Is it to be contactable and limited time? So you can actually survive without screen time.
That means you actually gain more by having lesser screen time than you lose. Because
Exactly.
the mindset is usually, you lose it. I mean, this is about YOLO, right?
Yes.
Fear of missing out.
Yes.
FOMO. All right? You don't check your screen, you don't check your Facebook, you don't check your phone, WhatsApp, and so on, for fear of missing out.
Yes.
But actually, you're missing out when you are, getting those updates and going to the gadgets unconsciously.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you now say, if I don't have that, then actually the time that is away from screen, you need alternatives that are meaningful.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Sometimes you go back to the old days. So that's when, the grandparents, they say, can I teach you how to, make a paper aeroplane, instead of going out to buy. So some of the things can come back again and rediscover, that's indoor play. But even better when you should be outdoors. Because when we talk about like myopia and all that, right, it's only prevented when you have exposure to sunlight of a certain intensity. So the guidelines actually, if you talk to people in studying myopia, they said in the early childhood years, at least 40 minutes outdoors and in quite intense sunlight. Sitting next to the window doesn't help actually. Yeah. So that's to prevent myopia or really to slow it down, because once you have myopia, even if you go outdoors, you can only slow it down.
Just to add, not only sitting beside the window, if your room is so bright by the artificial light, you cannot compare the sunlight outside.
No, you can't.
Because the lumen or the
lux, the
is
intensity of the light is different.
The sun gives you not only the vitamins, but also the different kind of light.
Yeah.
And people think that just brighten up your home. No, right. It doesn't work like that.
We actually have no excuse. You brought up a very pertinent point about vitamin D. Yeah. Would you believe that we living at the tropics with sunshine almost all year round, 50% of the population are deficient in vitamin D?
Oh, that's surprising.
No, look, we're all covered up, and if you go out, the hygiene for skin is very strong. You put on sunscreen and all that. And vitamin D in the early years very important as well, and for the adults also for bone health. Yeah,
that's right. So, I was out last Sunday at a sports football event, and I was just standing under direct sunlight for half an hour, and I got tan. So it was so easily tan, because I guess I've been indoors too much, and I used to be quite tan actually, and then I lost that tan because I was indoor too much. Yeah, I have this I've coined a new term to describe the modern day parenting. I mean, there are many parenting styles. The modern day one, I call it hands-free parenting. Hands-free parenting because parents would give their kids a device, and therefore the child would be for the next many minutes be engaged, and occupied, and that leaves the parents hands-free and able to do whatever they want. I actually have secretly taken a photograph while on an MRT train of an entire family, father, mother, and 3 kids, one of them in a stroller. Each of the 3 kids having a device.
Including in the stroller.
Including the one in the stroller, yes.
Must be very young, right? Like 3 years old or something.
And guess what the 2 parents were doing? Now, I'm not judging them. I know parenting is tiring and, they were both taking naps in a train, you see. And so the kids were not disturbing them. They were fully engrossed in, whatever they were watching on the screens, on their own screens. And so therefore, I called that hands-free parenting. Now, many parents are using it because it's effective. I mean, we cannot deny it's effective. It works.
In fact, the younger, apparently, our gadgets and the various apps attract the youngest most because of the changing. The various very attractive for the very young.
Yes.
So they tend to get immersed and entertained.
Yeah, it's a digital hook. It's actually all the apps, the app inventors are doing that to captivate eyeballs and all that. But there is a cost to that. You see, not only in very young minds and so on, particularly. So the addiction portion is quite real. As mentioned, if they taste something that is sweet, they want even more and more and more of it, and it's very easy to get out of hand. But also empathize with parents. Actually, if I came across also, I like to observe when I'm breakfast so I was at breakfast and I saw this hawker parent with a very young child, possibly just before primary school, also engaged in screen time. This was a Sunday, but she was trying to make ends meet. She was a Yong Tau Fu seller, so preparing, but no I was sitting there for half an hour having my breakfast, no interaction at all. But for people like them, obviously they need help. They're trying to make ends meet. So that's why different things for different people. But how can we help some of these people? And certainly we don't want to take away the responsibility of parenting away from the parents. And when do the parents actually learn to parent? Don't forget, there's the modeling portion. So we tend to, this might be a sweeping statement, but we tend to bring up children the way we were brought up. So how we, the parenting skills. So when do we actually develop the parenting skills? So you need a generation so that the next generation is a little bit better. And for Singapore, we're quite fortunate. So we need to work. It takes many, many hands to make this thing work as well. But I think the awareness part is important. Certainly no parent want to do any harm to their child. So if you now say that by doing these things, even though you get the instant respite there because you're very tired, maybe you're working long hours and so on, but you're doing the harm to your child, which may be irreparable later on, not just in terms of relationships, but so the quality time is important. There's a time and place. Usually they say for travels, because there are people around and you need to keep the person occupied. But few and far between. It comes back to a very disciplined parent. Of course, the environment around the parent, if it's supportive, is a lot useful. But I think we can also think through some innovative things, like especially, for example, if you belong to a group. Like the concept of homeschooling. You'll find that actually members by themselves cannot cope. But if you bring parents together, if they do take turns, so said like, I'm always down at the playground with my child. So instead of just benefiting one child, and if they happen to be neighbors, and of course trusting each other and so on, they could have those things and they can take turns, running some of the activities for short periods of time. So during that period, the child may be better if the parent is there as well, socialize amongst themselves and feel a bit more supported. But there are parents who really need the help. Single parents, households, for example. Priority is to make ends meet. Yet they have young children. So how do they go about that? Partnership with schools. So, some of those things, yeah. Yep. And better have parents come out with, some of the solutions themselves, what will work for them.
Well, that's a good suggestion. In fact, in this podcast, we want to expand not only in terms of awareness, but towards action-oriented programs, or even having communities of actually fathers. The fact that we don't just say we are parents too, we are dads too. We think there's a lot of potential and hope for fathers to further enhance parenting, right? Due to, I think, the environment today, more stress, working life, less balance. But at the same time, there's hope. For example, you're saying you may not afford the good enrichment, expensive enrichment program when the kids were young, but lo and behold, actually you are in a good state. That's where you are forced, to come up with your own solutions. Don't give up. Don't say that, because I can't afford to send to good enrichment school. Of course, there are many different level types, right? There's those $1,000 per month, there's 500, and 300, But just look within what you can do. As I think examples were given in abundance just now. What you can do with your children, all right? For that 2-3 hours that you send and spend $200, all right? You can not only save, but you can add a lot of value, into your children's life. Not only current or near in the near term, but in the longer term. And you're right saying that when our kids are in our teens already, as they grow up, they become more distant. It's only natural when they expand their social circle and so on. And while we are talking about childhood, about early childhood year, that's the best time for you to really maximize, optimize, and really use all the time, and not outsource.
Yes.
Your responsibility. Even I had, at one point in time, I had mates. Just imagine, what do you expect mates to do? I mean, they are hired to do very specific job. You don't expect them to do any kind of parenting. And the flip side is they even modeling the wrong thing to your kids unconsciously. And when they grow up, you see that it is not the person or the child that I bring up.
Yes.
You don't blame other people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the future, our domestic helpers needs to be
Okay,
trained
also.
in early childhood education also.
Yeah.
That will be the day, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't think that should be the day. I mean, I know in the old days there were guardians, people who
Extended family.
extended family, not even house masters, house mistress, who really nurture a child from day one. But those were days that that were different. Parents probably work very far, due to needs, basic needs that they have to earn a living. But today, when you say earn a living, we really sometimes stretch it too far.
Sure.
Luxuries become basic.
That's right.
When actually it's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also noticed in Singapore, actually, our conversations always revolve around either adults and a child. And Singapore has small families. Like, for example, I only have one daughter. But I know, not all families, although it tends to be the trend. So the role of siblings is also very important. So especially, there's research not based in Singapore is saying that, if you have siblings or older sibling, the younger ones actually take after them also. So they also have a role to play. So if you bring them up in or negotiate in certain terms, then you can shape some of the behavior. So it's not necessarily always the parent and the immediate child, but through the sibling as well.
Yeah, that probably, as I realized in this podcast, if I need to re-listen over and over again, all right, because there's a lot of gem inside here, and there's a lot of other topics we can bring out of this. I mean, including, why should we have more than, now that you have one child, I have 4 children, you have 3. And having 4 children is no joke.
Yes.
But at the same time, you look at the benefits, there are many too.
Yes.
All right. I have some of my kids are really very cooperative. The older ones,
Yes.
because they are forced into having this little one and forced into helping them and caring for them at an early age, and that will probably build their character when they grow up.
Yeah.
And I know
skills.
that you may have probably heard some research for the one child family or one child state like China, for example, they have issues with individuals being too individualistic.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that will not be good for the society as a whole, not to say that's the family.
Correct. I can easily think in terms of like activities they could do together, camping. So also, in Singapore, the trend seems to be that parents are having children later. So there's a gap in terms of energy level also. You can imagine running after the toddler. But if you have a larger family, the family network can actually do a lot as well.
But some small families that give an excuse. Need not have a child, have a cat or a dog.
Oh,
yeah. Can it replace a real person? Have a pet.
Different sort of love. Yeah.
My daughter and son-in-law practiced their parenting by having 2 dogs.
Yes.
Before the baby came.
Oh.
So they were. It was good practice. To be honest, it was good practice because it's just like raising a child. You will have different styles, different philosophies and methods and whatever, And so they use that to, knowingly or unknowingly, it really helped to refine and kind of smooth out the rough edges between the two of them, so that when the child eventually came, they were more prepared for it.
I see.
So that's a very interesting thing.
So try and error.
So they started with one dog, and then they brought in the second one, and then the third one, the baby came. And so now the baby is playing with the dog's toys rather than his own toys. That's an interesting thing, I mean, he doesn't want to play with his own toys. He wants to play with the dog's toys.
The elder siblings' toys.
Yeah, maybe he sees the dogs as his siblings. I don't know.
It's not uncommon to see dogs and cats in strollers.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
so they practice their skills. Yeah,
correct.
I mean, they're so odd couples. I mean, lions and dogs, or bears and chickens. I mean, I've seen it on video. They can get along with each other.
Well, Dr. Chia, we definitely enjoyed having you. I think, shall we invite him back to talk about maybe play or something else? I think those are very... you're a physical educator, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So we
play
can
advocate.
Play advocate. I read a bit about you. You had this project called Pride for Play that you introduced into schools, and then also about still and heavy.
Yes.
About adolescents, being too still and then therefore putting on a lot of weight, obesity. So lots of things to squeeze out of him.
Wow. Before he sets up and start his own podcast, you better, get him more, in our other episodes. Already, this probably have to be
I'm happy to play
episodes.
along.
So that we can say, you heard it here first.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, it was really a learning and fun. All right, talking to you. You're not the regular prof. I mean, I saw you in the lift just now. I didn't expect to be a prof. I said the prof usually no hair like me. Less hair.
I said sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah. Then, so very unassuming. So thank you very much for coming on our podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Till the next time, we are all dads too. So see you.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Iman Catalyst Community, which is missioned to elevate hope by transforming lives through social education initiatives as well as personal development programs. We are the medium that come in between NGOs and their beneficiaries to enhance their sustainability and impact. If you'd like to know more, connect, and collaborate with us, you can reach us at Facebook and Instagram at Iman Catalyst. That's spelled EMAAN. And we would like to work and partner with you.
Thank you so much for tuning to this week's conversation. We hope that this episode helped you in your transformational journey as dads. If you like this podcast, make sure you review, follow, and share it with your friends. For more episodes and resources on fathering, check us out at We Are Dads Too on Facebook and Instagram.
We would also like to hear your comments and questions, so please feel free to share them on our FB and IG pages and also our Twitter, and be connected to other dads too. Until next time, let's take the next step to be the special dad we are meant to be. Take care and stay safe.